Hello and welcome to our first webinar of 2023. My name is Jessica Hunt, and if you have attended any of our events in the past, you will notice that I have a different title than in previous years. I am one of the co-presidents as well as the Director of Marketing and Communications at Environment+Energy Leader, and I'm so pleased to have George Sakellaris with us, the founder, President and CEO of AMRC. So George, thank you so much for being on with us. I hope you had a nice holiday season.
Thank you for inviting me to participate in this great conversation.
Yes, we truly appreciate you being here today. Before we really jump into the specifics of this discussion, I just love to hear about what's going on in your life, how your family is. Introduce us to the side of George that we don't get to read about all the time.
Okay, I mean, what can I say? I'm living the dream. I am working on something that not only help myself and my family, but also the society, because climate change is here, and I am delighted that we have created a company that's helping the customers. And then, of course, I have a great family, married to a lovely wife, Kathy, and then two great children, Christina, who graduated from Stanford University, and now she's on the U.S. sailing team. And then Peter, my son, he's a pitcher, Division I baseball at Virginia Tech, and he's graduating this year with a chemical engineering degree, and then who knows what he's going to do next. So and then of course I love my sports. I do competitive sailing, as many people know, on the Maxi 72-foot Proteus. I love running, and I love tennis, and I love the outdoors, and these are great times. And I feel very good where we are. And I say I live the dream because I started in this business back in '79 when it wasn't fashionable to be in the energy business here in the renewables. And today, that's why I love to continue doing what I'm doing, because the environment has evolved and people realize that we need it and we got to do something about it.
100%. So I'm sure for you, it's been quite the journey to see, just in general, how the world is adopting a more clean energy, way of living and doing business.
That is correct. And at the end of the day, I think we created this issue, the people, and ultimately the people combined with technologies and improvements will be able to solve it. And I think it can be solved.
I could not agree with you more there. And I just wanted to say real quick, in case our audience was not aware, but AMRC recently was named Best Place to Work, a large corporation, but from the Best in Business Awards. So congratulations to AMRC and all of your employees. I know that creating a culture where employees are excited to come to work and excited about what they're doing is extremely important to you.
No question about it. Because at the end of the day, we are in the service business, and we are as good as our people. And we are in a competitive environment. In order to be successful, we have to attract the best and motivate them and keep them for the long term. And in order to be able to do that, you have to create a culture where they will not only get rewarded, but they want to work there. Because in today's environment, people, they will go where they will feel more comfortable, that they want to be there. And the fact that all this evaluation was done by the employees, we feel very good. But on the other hand, though, I keep telling that my management team, our quest is to continuously improve in whatever we do, and taking care of our people and making sure that they're growing within the company. It's one of the things that we must do, and do it well in order to be successful.
And I think that's such an important point that you mentioned, because so many, I don't want to say so many leaders, but there are leaders who are not reflecting on their company as a whole and changes that can be implemented to improve morale, to improve employee performance and overall importance. So what would you give? What type of advice would you give to those specific, company leaders, C-suite executives, in order to make sure that they are, facilitating an environment where their employees can succeed, can improve, and want to, not just can do it, but actually want to do it?
Yeah, I would say look at yourselves. Start from yourselves. Because I always put myself in an employee's shoe and say, okay, how did I grow? What did my management did that allowed me to grow? And what kind of mentors did I have in my development career? So try to do the same thing. Put yourself in that particular employee's shoe, and then say, okay, what will take for that particular employee to grow and feel good as what they are doing and continuously growing their career paths and so on and so forth. So to me, that's the best guideline that I ever had. I always try to manage people the way I wanted to be managed when I was in the growing environment within a particular company.
And such an important point.
And listen to the employees today, because today's generation is considerably different than, let's say, 10 or 20 years ago, especially the millennials. And I will say this much: they are so bright coming out of college with little coaching and so on, and creating the right environment for them. It's tremendous opportunity that they can succeed.
Great advice. No, absolutely great advice. And we're going to go back a little bit to the beginning of your career. You mentioned starting this journey in the 70s. So you obviously have a passion for creating and neutral business models for energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. So this is your life's work. You talk about it. You can tell the passion in your voice with it. What specifically led you down this path, and what advice do you have for companies who are starting really kind of from ground zero at this point?
Yeah, well, I was lucky being in the right place, the right time, back in 1979 with the oil crisis. And then I was doing long-range planning for New England Electric, which was one of the largest electric companies in New England. And I was asked whether it makes economic sense to promote conservation and renewables and avoid the need to build Seabrook number 2, otherwise new generation. And I proved to them that it was much more economic to promote and implement energy efficiency and reduce the demand and avoid the need of the new power plants. And after that, we developed that long-range strategy, saying that we're not going to be building any more power plants. The chief executive officer, Guy Nichols, says, George, okay, you've been dreaming long enough. Set up a company to promote conservation and implement the energy efficiency and so on. And I found my passion. I felt so comfortable doing it because you help the customers save energy 10 to 20 to 30%. It gets paid out of the savings. Otherwise, the infrastructure upgrades can happen through the savings. It's a win situation for them. They get new equipment. And I felt very comfortable, win-win situation. And then I said, and by the way, we're helping the environment. The best renewable resource is avoiding burning fossil fuels. So, and then after that, I found something that I really cared, and that's the advice that I will give all the young people when they start out in a company: find your passion. And with me, I found my passion, and I've been in it, and the industry's been very good to me. And the fact that I've been in it for so long, and it helps us recruit and retain some young talent.
Yes, no. And I think that is such a good piece of advice, is that, young people or people of any, generation are pulled in so many different directions now. And it really is about, honing in on what you're passionate about and how you can, implement that, not just in your personal life, but your professional life as well. And, how that can set you up on a very positive trajectory for the future. So I'm thankful that you mentioned those points. There. So let's get into our next question, which has to do with the maintaining in the renewable energy infrastructure. So what is the biggest driving factor in creating this infrastructure besides, political and economic barriers, which we are all aware of? What factors are hindering the rate at which companies are adopting more renewable sources of energy?
Okay, let's start first. What's driving it?
Yes.
And the ESG issues are beginning to create some traction, and a lot of people, whether it's companies, presidents of universities, mayors, they're beginning to realize that climate change is an issue, and we got to do something about it. And so many, the better part of the constituents, you might say, they are doing something about it because they want to. And then what's happening? The economics, the technological advances that we had in the last few years, they have brought the cost down, so it makes some very good economic sense. So that is a driver. The other thing that, and of course you mentioned the policies, the regulations, they drive it, but at the end of the day, like I said, it's the individuals, they want to do something about it. It has become a driver. And then the technologies have brought the cost down, that many of those issues, the renewable resources that you want to implement, they pencil out. They are cost effective. And now you have the other group that they are very reluctant to do anything because they're reluctant to change. And how we're going to get those people to implement those energy efficiency measures or the solar plants, the renewable assets that will get us to where we're going to get to net zero. And I think it will be ultimately little by little more education to them. And I wouldn't be surprised at the end of the day that some kind of a carbon fee that will motivate each and everyone to do something about it. And in addition to that, that carbon fee, that money can be used other ways to bring renewable to some of the homes that they cannot afford to do it. Put solar on the roofs and so on, or put some resiliency, battery storages on the storm-prone areas and so on. So ultimately, it will take, it's not a silver bullet, but it will take something, a carbon fee. You want to pollute? Okay, you will pay a certain amount of money. But the better part, though, and this is what makes me feel good, the better part of society right now, whether it's countries, whether it's business, college, whatever, customer, clients, they have begun to do something about it.
No,
course,
they have.
The ESG requirements is pushing them in that direction.
Which is wonderful to see. And I know just from a personal aspect, we've had solar on our roof for about a year, and it's been absolutely wonderful. Not only is it saving us money, but it's obviously better for the environment. And, you know, it's something that it was kind of a no-brainer for my husband and myself to make that decision. So it's wonderful that we have that opportunity, you know, to help just, you know, on our little aspect.
Ultimately, we want to get to net zero, right? Carbon zero, which means all those residences, we will have to make sure that they have some kind of solar, the ones that they can. Otherwise, we use every resource that we possibly can, and they cannot afford it. So if we have a pool of money that we could utilize in order to be able to do that, then I think it will help society much, much better.
No, I couldn't agree more with you. And I know, you know, you mentioned some money aspects of not, you know, transitioning to clean energy. And from everything that I have read and some of the studies that are coming out of Europe, companies there, European-based companies, are about to tie, and some have already started to do this, employee compensation to carbon footprint, to their own specific carbon footprint. So do you foresee that, you know, coming down the pathway here? Because the United States is usually a few steps behind Europe.
Yep.
Good. Yeah, I definitely foresee that happening in the future too. So, you know, you mentioned a little bit about stakeholders who are unwilling to make those change and, you know, providing them the education. What has been your experience in terms of providing education or, you know, real life examples of why it is imperative that, you know, these companies make the transitions to clean energy? What has been the thing that has you know, shown these stakeholders and given them that aha moment? Okay, I'm ready to switch.
Well, I cannot mention the name of a particular client that we had. That it took me 2 years to convince them because they were afraid the color redemption for their produce that they have. So in a supermarket, it would have been good. So it took me 2 years to prove to them that I saved them 20% of the electric cost. I improved the lighting level by 20%, and then they said, you were lucky on this particular store. And then the other thing that happened, their sales went up, right? And then he says, okay, I will give you 2 more stores. So they gave us 2 more stores. The same thing happened. Then we ended up to do 900 stores.
Wow.
So basically, it's otherwise leading by the example, getting to those particular customers to the table, showing them how it works, or telling them how it works on another particular project, and give you the ability to at least do a demonstration project. And then you move on. Because I firmly believe, and I know based on experience, that we can save 20 to 30% of the energy, any facility that we go into it, and we give them a net budget neutral. Otherwise, why wouldn't anybody do it? But they are reluctant until you give them some examples.
The firsthand knowledge, the firsthand experience of putting your words into action and putting your research and your expertise into action is what they need.
And then get into, let's say, real estate owners or whatever, turning their facilities management over to you in a way. And they are reluctant to do that. So even the plant managers, they're reluctant to turn it over. So that's where it takes education. And that's why I say our business is local. That's why we have offices all across North America and so on. So it's, but education, example, projects.
Examples. And this is actually a really good time to mention to our audience, if you have questions for George or any other members of his team, please feel free to submit during the webinar or even after the webinar, and we are more than happy to pass all of the questions over to him, and somebody from his team or George himself will be happy to answer. So just wanted to put that in there right now. Let's jump into the topic of microgrids. So how have they evolved over the past 10, 20 years or so to offer additional economic benefits to help whole communities' economic growth?
What's happening, resiliency is becoming a bigger and bigger issue. Why? Because as we rely more and more on solar, wind, those renewables, they are intermittent. Otherwise, at night, we have no solar, and sometimes we have no wind. Then you have the storms. And the climate change has compounded the issue. The climate change, we have some violent storms with the hurricanes, we have some violent fires, and so on. So a particular industry cannot afford to be out and lose production, or a hospital, and without any power. So, and the other thing that has happened on the microgrids, because now you need local generation. So the battery storage came along, and the microprocessors. Basically, in nanoseconds, you can switch off from the grid. Let's say you lost the grid to bring on the new power. And the batteries, because it's ready available power, you bring it on, and then you probably need some kind of another generation source if the power outage is out. And so it's a necessity. It became more of a necessity. And as the costs come down, it pays for itself. I mean, every base that we're doing right now in the United States government, like Paris Island, every one of them, they all have microgrids. Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, Norfolk Naval Shipyard, and so on. And then some of the hospitals that we are doing. Now, one of their biggest concerns is resiliency. Because look what happened in Texas this past year, before, and so on. And as we rely more and more on renewables, and or things will happen. Otherwise, you lose them all at once. So you got to come up with something. That's why I keep saying to people that at the end of the day, we will need more than just microgrids and more than just solar and wind, because they are intermittent. We will need what we call 24/7 clean fuel supply, whether it's hydrogen, whether it's a new technology, whatever the case might be. But we need more. The puzzle is not solved yet, but the technologies are getting there.
Yeah, technologies are getting there. Puzzle is not solved. So, you mentioned the clean energy and hydrogen. So where do you see the future in the next 10 years? Where is the main focus, if you can even pinpoint a main focus in the clean energy technologies in future?
I think hydrogen is going to play a key role down the road. I wouldn't be surprised that we might see fusion come into the picture, and especially in small scale installations, because somehow, some way, biofuels will play a key role. Renewable natural gas is going to play a key role, because many people right now, they think that we will go total electric. it's essentially impossible.
Yeah.
Just think downtown New York, you will have to upgrade every electric distribution system. So, and 40% of the consumers, they use natural gas.
Mm-hmm.
So we need renewable natural gas, especially in the interim, until we find some other thing that maybe it's fusion or something else down the road. But until that happens, we need these clean fuels.
Yep, we need a good mix of both. I can't imagine what it would cost to even change, the infrastructure in New York City to support 100% EV or electric. I don't, just in general, don't see how that would really be possible in the interim, at least. So AMRC, as you mentioned earlier, is a global company. So what advice do you have for companies who are, looking to expand globally and, are really in the initial stage of this global, increase in offices, or just their increase in overall expansion?
Yeah, the same rules apply, going globally, that when we go from state to state, get to know their culture, get to know the market, and above all, get to know the customers and what they want, what they need. And in order to accomplish that, you need local talent. And that's why we started with small acquisitions, and then we help those companies grow. We provide the backup, the infrastructure, or the capital required, and so on. And you will see us continuing that particular strategy. Wherever we go, probably each and every country that we will go to, we will probably buy a small company and help them grow. Because AMRC, basically the same concept that we grew AMRC with. We have done 22 acquisitions, and that's what gave us the great footprint across the United States and Canada. So, and now, of course, we are very strong in UK. We are working on a couple of acquisitions in other parts of Europe, because you mentioned it earlier, Europe, especially what happened after Russia, it's tremendous opportunity, especially for renewable.
No, definitely.
Otherwise, another source of energy.
Yeah, and it is wonderful that, you really have set a blueprint in place, for companies, to follow, to start small, and then, really focus in on the company that they're acquiring and get to know the culture and the employees and what their needs are. What are their specific needs? Because obviously every state has different needs. Some of them are the same, but regions are going to have different needs, and as well as, different countries. So that's a really, important point, I think, for our audience to take away. Now, when you go into these other countries, obviously you have subject matter experts there dealing with, different regulations. Have there been any hiccups in terms of, the regulations going overseas and, some things that are a little bit different than what you have to deal with here in the United States?
No question about it. They're quite different, especially country, especially in Europe, and the cultures and so on and so forth. But we got to work around them. There are more challenges, and you probably need more legal or people that understand the regulations better. And you got to be careful, and it takes time to learn the environment. And the other thing that you have to do, all the acquisitions, most of the people, the companies that we acquired, they're still with us. And this is, you want to accomplish the same thing in Europe or anywhere else we go, that you create a culture that those people will feel that this is the best place for them to work at, and keep them, and of course you grow from there.
No, I think that you have laid such a positive, sense of community for not only AMRC, but it's for other leaders to follow, who may be struggling internally with, how they can improve not just their internal relations, but how that can grow and move, outward as well. So, I really appreciate the fact that you are so transparent about what, you personally have done at AMRC, and then, what your managers and, other executives, all the way down to, the vast amount of employees you have worldwide. So, what are some things, and this is not something that we necessarily talked about before, but what is some feedback that you've gotten from, from employees, and how have you implemented those, ideas or suggestions?
The community, what you mentioned is probably what we try to do. We start with a small company, say like a extended family, and we try to maintain that all along. One of the things that we implemented that came from the employees back to us, better communication. And that's why right now, we have webinars just about every 3 months, and they talk to just each and every employee. Early on, when the company was small, I would visit every office and talk to them. Now we can't, and then now we have implemented a webinar or more education, especially as the new technologies evolve. I think last year we had something like 30, 40 technology webinars where people will sign up, and somebody that knows a lot about a particular subject, let's say RNG, renewable natural gas, or hydrogen, wherever the case might be, and we'll try to educate the workforce. And then another part that they bring more open career paths, how we design the career paths and how we help them. And that's something that we are working on. So trying to listen to them and keep improving.
Yeah, keep improving. Yeah, and I think that's so important too. Is really stressing open communication, where employees can feel that their voices are heard, and that their managers and their executives really do have their best interests, into account when they make policy changes or make decisions that are going to affect the whole of a company. So that is really nice to hear that Ameresco, has listened to their employees, because that doesn't always happen, and you have implemented changes that are truly beneficial to everybody.
Okay. Thank you. Look, that's how you win the employees over, that they will feel they are part of the greater community and they are contributing to that greater community.
Yes, no, I could not agree more. And we talked a little bit about Europe, and you mentioned the UK, and you just, as of last month, Ameresco announced a 20-year partnership with the Bristol City Council to have them carbon and neutral, climate resilient by 2030. So talk to us about this agreement. How did it start? How did they, from the initial conversation to that 20-year agreement? Can you kind of walk us through that process, just so, the attendees can kind of see, from start to finish, what that whole process looked like?
We are super delighted about that particular award. The way it started, they went out with a request for proposals about a couple of years back. And then, of course, we submitted the proposal. Then they went through the evaluation and so on and so forth. And then we were lucky to win the proposal. But generally, customers like that, because ultimately they want to be carbon neutral, right? Net zero. So they are looking for companies that they will provide what they call, and we call it too, a holistic approach. Somebody that not only will address the energy efficiency, not that they will address the solar, because the solar, they have potential for wind farms, they have substantial potential for geothermal, and they look for companies that they have that particular holistic approach. So it's a 20-year agreement, and basically we have identified over $400 million of various measures that we can implement there. But by the end of the day, it's going to be over £1 billion of investment that has to be made in order to get that particular city carbon neutral. And one of the things that we score early, they had they have the low-income housing, and they had issued a previous RFP, request for proposals, to see what we can do for that particular facilities. And we recommended, of course, energy efficiency and solar. And they like the fact, because ultimately you have to address each and every facility in that particular community. And they like the fact that we took the initiative, we did very well, good job for that. And then they realized that we are one of those companies that they were looking for, because it was a very hotly competitive environment. There were 23 companies, and many of them, the European companies. And they selected us because they said these guys, they can address just about everything rather than breaking it up to different entities. And hopefully this will become the blueprint. And now we are talking to, after that, to a couple other cities, mayors, that they want to achieve that. But it's a blueprint though for every college campus, you know, every hospital, every facility. And ultimately we will learn a lot, and others we will learn a lot, because we will make it a blueprint in order to achieve net zero, because it has to be done sooner or later. And we want to be in a key player in accomplishing that mission for this particular cities or customers, clients.
No, that's wonderful. And you took a few of the questions out of my mouth. I was gonna ask you if you knew how many companies that you were competing against, and if were there any other, do you know if there were any other American companies, American-based companies, or was it you and then Ameresco and all European?
No, all of the American companies that we compete in the United States, they were over there too. And then of course all the major European companies like the Siemens and so on.
Well, congratulations. Yes, congratulations again. I know it's a very exciting project for the city of Bristol as well as Ameresco. So what's next for not just you personally, professionally, but Ameresco?
Keep growing the way we are, delivering top value, top quality product to our customers. And I think expand in a large scale in Europe. And of course, seeing more of the RNG facilities being developed, stay in tune with the next emerging technologies, whether it's hydrogen or whether it might be something else, and keep growing. And one of the things that I like to focus a lot is our human resource, because especially with the Inflation Reduction Act, more competition will come to in this environment, and of course there will be more competition for the employees. So you got to pay special attention to them, especially if you want to maintain a leadership position in this business.
No, wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And then for you yourself, what do you have plans for for 2023?
Other than doing about 4 races, competitive sailing races, continue to see the company flourish, and then of course the family get some great vacations and so on. But and then hopefully by 24, seeing Christina competing in the Olympics in France. So
that would be wonderful. Well, maybe I will see you over there, because my cousin is an Olympic wrestler.
Oh, so, excellent.
Yeah, he won the gold in at Rio in wrestling. So
that's great.
Yes, and silver in this past Olympics. So yeah, maybe I'll see you over there.
Excellent. I've been looking forward to it then.
Yeah. Yes, we are as well. Well, George, I do want to thank you for, taking the time to sit down with E&E Leader today, and I could not think of a better way to kick off 2023 than sitting down and having a conversation with you. So I do hope we get to speak again, throughout the year. We would love to have you back anytime that you're available.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed the conversation, Jessica, and feel free anytime, because I think we need more and more. Part of the education is more articles being written, more discussions being made, because that's all part of the educational program. And the more people they see things or other people talk about it, the more they would get aboard.
I couldn't agree more. And at our Solutions Summit last summer, our main theme was transparency, and being transparent and sharing information, and how that has changed over the past 20 years or so, when companies didn't want to share information, and how that culture has really changed and shifted into a world of transparency, because ultimately we can help each other out.
Exactly. And we have to.
Yeah.
Because we created this problem, we have to solve it.
We have to solve it. And more heads together will help that. So Again, thank you. And thank you to the entire team at Ameresco. At this point, we're going to conclude the webinar. But again, if you have any questions for George or other members of Ameresco, please feel free to submit at any time. But as for now, we're going to sign off. So again, thank you, George, and thank you to the rest of your team. It's always a pleasure to work with the Amoresco family.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.